If you're seeing this, the course is probably up now and the link is in the description. We're going to talk about pure diatonic pivot chord modulation, and it's actually a lost art form, and we're going to go over this in a second. In this video, you'll get a free modulation just to see what the course is about, but I've been attacking AI with this question. And every way I attack it, it cannot do it. And it's because this has become sort of a lost art form, and AI is probably not even fed this. So what I asked it to do is go from G major to G minor, reducing the sharp, and then start adding flats via common chord pivots that can imply either sharps or flats, depending on what chord you're on. So again, I ask it to reduce this sharp and start working in a counterclockwise way towards G minor that has two flats, and it could have one sharp, diatonic sharp if you're using harmonic minor or melodic minor. Because remember, there are three forms of minor. So here's its solution. It didn't even bother. It just started to use, it actually used a borrowed chord. The solution it came up with was what is typically normal nowadays. It's just to simply chromatically alter something to get there. But it didn't even sound like a modulation. It sounds like modal interchange. If I do something like this. It's just modal interchange. I'm revolving around that G. That's the solution it gave me. And it actually says it's not possible to diatonically pivot from G major to G minor. I asked it to gradually reduce sharps and go to flats, and it didn't do that. It just jumped to flats. In other words, it doesn't know how to do it. And the reason is this is an extremely rare process today. I'm going to show you in a second. Going from G major to G minor, traveling through different keys that will suddenly imply that G minor tonality by using pivot chords that can imply sharps or flats. Now here's a theory book from T-Bar Surly, I believe how it's pronounced. He was one of Bela Bartok's favorite students, and he states that there's diatonic, chromatic, and harmonic modulation, but diatonically passing through different keys is becoming a lost art form, and this is a while back too. And so he's contradicting AI. So to get from G to G minor, removing this sharp and going towards flats, I have to get to a chord that will imply flats. That can imply one flat, the C chord, because that's in F. So that's part of the diatonic process. And the F can imply two flats. And this is what he's talking about. Diatonically and temporarily passing through other keys to get to your new key. Let's create a scenario. If we're in G5, the E minor chord can diatonically imply one sharp or two sharps if it's the 2 of D. It could also imply no accidentals, C, as the 3 chord. So you could go to the C. It's implying that. That can imply one flat. You could go to F. That implies two flats. Now we're close. Now you're at the point where you could just work to a cadence to G minor. Remember, minor has 3 different scales, so we consider all the chords from those diatonic. So there's our modulation. Let's compare it to AI's solution. It couldn't do it. It had to chromatically alter the 4 chord. The same process of diatonic modulation can reduce flats, doing the opposite, going from G minor to G, without it sounding like modal interchange. Diatonic modulation can lead you to very distant keys, and I talk about this in the course. Now this is an extremely rare ability because most people don't do that. They just simply jump to new keys or use chromatic alteration. Here's a free modulation from the course. I'm going 2 sharps away to B minor from C, using diatonic pivot chords. Notice how natural it sounds? That's the thing with diatonic modulation. It tends to sound very natural and smooth. And there's a free one for you. Let me take that same thing, pass through B minor, go to A. So if you learn how to pivot modulate, you can get to any key with common chords alone, gradually introducing flats or oppositely sharps, and then which would eventually turn into flats again. And in my course, I teach you how to gradually work up to this process to get to any key, finding many solutions. Let's go from G major to G minor again. Now let's just listen to AI's solution again. You notice how unsmooth it sounds? It sounds more like just revolving around the G tonal center, modally interchanging. So the course delves into this rare kind of thing that's being forgotten in history because people just like to jump modulate most of the time, just simply jumping to new keys. Ironically, if you're into film composers, people like John Williams, David Arnold, a lot of the older school guys were very good at pivot modulating. And if you want to understand composers like Wagner, he was very good at this too. In fact, I call him the master of pivot modulation sequences. So there's a free modulation in here and something that AI can't do currently. And if you're interested in this, take the course.